Dunkley News International. Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to China underlines an increasingly close partnership between the two allies. China, led by President Xi Jinping, has offered robust diplomatic support to Moscow after its invasion of Ukraine. It also has emerged as a top export market for Russian oil and gas, helping to fill the Kremlin's war coffers. Russia has relied on China as the main source of high-tech imports to keep its military machine running. Once communist rivals, the two countries that share a long border have become closer in recent years. Putin and Xi have developed strong personal ties to bolster their strategic partnership as they both face soaring tensions with the West. Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to China underlines an increasingly close partnership between the two allies. China, led by President Xi Jinping, has offered robust diplomatic support to Moscow after its invasion of Ukraine. It also has emerged as a top export market for Russian oil and gas, helping to fill the Kremlin's war coffers. Russia has relied on China as the main source of high-tech imports to keep its military machine running. Once communist rivals, the two countries that share a long border have become closer in recent years. Putin and Xi have developed strong personal ties to bolster their strategic partnership as they both face soaring tensions with the West. A prisoner nicknamed the Fly has become notorious in France after a daring escape from a prison convoy in Normandy, in which 2 guards were killed. Mohamed Amra has a long and violent criminal history that has now culminated in a high-profile search. Amra was born in Rouen and had a colorful adolescence marked by early run-ins with the law. The Paris public prosecutor says Amra's first offenses in his early teens involved violence, theft, and extortion. Now 30, he has become entangled in a life of crime. The prosecutor stated that Amra had significant connections with Marseille's organized crime syndicates and was suspected of heading a drug trafficking network. The threat of a wildfire near Canada's oil sands hub of Fort McMurray, Alberta, appeared to be easing Wednesday, a day after thousands of residents were forced to evacuate their homes in the city of 68,000. Favorable winds were expected to push the fire away. Many residents of the Northwest Canada city earn a paycheck from the nearby oil industry that contributes to the planet-warming emissions that worsen the threat of wildfires. A long and likely hot summer lies ahead, but fire officials have said it's not clear that wildfire smoke will be the same problem it was during last year's record-setting wildfire summer. The political power of Muslims is declining in the world's largest democracy. Tensions between Hindus and Muslims in India are not new, but they have gotten worse under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. His ruling Bharatiya Janata Party touts a Hindu nationalist ideology and is on the cusp of delivering him a third 5-year term. As the BJP becomes more powerful, this year's vote will be decided in June. The proportion of Muslim lawmakers in parliament and state legislatures is shrinking. One political scientist said India has gone from being a country where Muslims were largely marginalized to one where they are actively excluded. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, an amateur musician, may have thought he had the perfect upbeat song to perform with a Kiev bar band. Fresh from a day of delivering optimistic prognoses about the war with Russia, despite gloomy news from the front lines, he played "Rockin' in the Free World" in a packed club, ostensibly to encourage Ukrainians to keep up the fight. The 1989 song sounds like it should be an homage to the glory of living in the West uncompromised by communism or authoritarianism. In fact, it's a lament about despair caused by homelessness, drug addiction, and poverty. Anti-Islam firebrand Geert Wilders and 3 other Dutch party leaders say they have brokered a provisional government deal. The move brings closer a government driven by the hard right in yet another European Union nation. The party leaders said Wednesday that they will put the text to their party backbenchers before a full government deal can be announced. The parties still have to agree on a prime minister, who is expected to be a technocrat from outside the party structures. With hard right and populist parties now part of or leading a half-dozen governments in the 27-nation bloc, they appear positioned to make gains in the June election for the European Parliament. Japan has reported that its economy contracted at an annual rate of 2% in the first quarter of the year, as spending and exports declined. The Cabinet Office said Thursday that on a quarter-to-quarter basis, the preliminary seasonally adjusted gross domestic product, or GDP, a measure of the value of a nation's products and services, slipped 0.5% in the January-March period. The annual rate measures what would have happened if the quarterly rate lasted a year. The Japanese yen is trading at three-decade lows against the dollar, which increases costs for imports of necessities such as food and oil. Switzerland's top criminal court has convicted a former interior minister of Gambia for crimes against humanity for his role in murder, torture, and other repression by the West African country's security forces against opponents of its longtime dictator. Usman Sonko was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was Gambia's interior minister from 2006 to 2016 under then-President Yahya Jammeh. The trial was hailed as a major breakthrough in application of universal jurisdiction. That principle allows the prosecution of serious crimes committed abroad. The verdict was read out in Swiss Federal Criminal Court in southern Bellinzona on Wednesday.